and welcome back to my channel. My name's Enola, and if you've been here before, then welcome back, and if you haven't, then welcome. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about a musical I recently went to see and do a little review, and that musical was Back to the Future. So Back to the Future's on currently at the Opera House in Manchester, so of course I had to pay that a visit. Bought some tickets for myself and my mum for her birthday, and I thought it would be a really nice treat for us to go and watch this show. I heard some really great things about it. I wasn't actually sure about it when I first heard there was a musical of Back to the Future coming out. I was a bit like, but I can tell you right now, I was pleasantly surprised. So we'll jump straight in with a little review. It's just my own opinions, what I thought of the show. Let's do it. So I always know about the soundtrack of a musical I'm going to see. I am one of those people that mainly goes and sees musicals because I really love the soundtrack and I love a certain actor in it, or I love that story, or I just am drawn to that musical. So this one, I actually had never heard the soundtrack to the musical, but I don't think it's available to listen to anyway. There's a few snippets on YouTube, but there's nothing on Spotify or anything like that. It's brand new, so probably couldn't have done my research on it that much anyway. But I kind of liked that because I was like just going in, not knowing what to expect. Obviously I've seen the film, but I'm not like a die-hard fan of Back to the Future. I haven't seen the film since I was like younger, back in the 90s probably. I literally haven't watched it since then, so I literally had no idea what to expect, and I can only remember like certain snippets and obviously some famous phrases and things from the movie. Okay, I'll stop rambling now because I'm the queen of rambling. So when we got there and we went in, it's actually straight away quite an immersive thing because the way it's set up is there's all this like futuristic sort of lighting that it goes like right up the sides, and it was like making all these futuristic noises. It was like all blue colour, so you kind of like felt like you were stepping into a time machine. So I liked that effect because I was like, oh. So the set was lovely. It was really good. They had like a revolving circle bit in the middle, which worked really well with the scene changes and things. Everything was very slick and smooth, and you could tell that you were in the 80s, and I love the 80s. Got my 80s George Michael t-shirt on today for the occasion. Nothing to do with the film, but it's still 80s, so whatever. The company, you could tell straight away that they gelled very well together on stage, so that was really nice to see. The sound was particularly quite good because usually a lot of musicals I go and see lately, I can never like quite hear what people are singing about sometimes. The mix of the band and the vocals sometimes gets a bit lost, but in this one it actually was pretty loud, and I was like really sucked into it straight away. I could hear what people were singing, so that was good. Liked that about it. Ollie Dobson plays Marty McFly, and I just thought he was great. I thought he carried himself really well. He had a really good voice, had like a bit of a rocky edge to it. It wasn't just completely pure MT. The whole thing in itself actually was a bit like a rock show. I thought he portrayed Marty McFly really well. As much as my memory can remember what he was like in the film, it was quite true to the character. He had the characterization down pretty good, and his chemistry with Doc Brown was also amazing. Like you could tell they bounced off each other. Moving on to Doc Brown, played by the phenomenal Roger Bart. He was just amazing. I felt like he also, stayed very true to the original character, but then he also brought a lot of his own sort of personality to the role, and it was nice to see that because of course Doc Brown's a sort of scientist that doesn't take himself too seriously. He's quite comical, and that really came across on stage. It didn't really break the fourth wall, but it did have a panto-esque feel about it sometimes because it's probably because it is a comedy. It was very funny, and also I feel like a lot of people would have just had this nostalgic feeling watching this show, which is really nice because there was a huge different like age range of people watching it. People that obviously really value the film and obviously came because of the film. Because I feel like it's not the sort of musical you would think to go and see. Okay, that makes sense. I feel like if this musical wasn't originally a film, then I don't think it would have sold as well, maybe, in my opinion. But because it's such an iconic film, I feel like people were just so drawn to it that it was actually a full house, pretty much. Yeah, so I feel like it's got that sense of nostalgia about it. And so every time a character came on and like said their opening line, there was like a cheer from the audience, so you could tell that some of the characters were playing up to the audience a bit. It just felt really immersive, and you felt like you were just like involved in it without being involved in it, if that makes sense. Moving on to Lorraine Baines, played by Rosanna Hyland. So I thought she was really good. Like, she had a lovely singing voice, and she did really well in portraying Lorraine in the 80s and then Lorraine in the 50s. Like there was a nice clear definition of character. I think she did that really well, as did the other characters, to be honest. Which brings me on to George McFly, who I thought was a standout character. The characterization of this particular character was amazing and he got a lot of recognition from the audience. So George McFly was played by Hugh Coles, and I think this was his first professional stage debut, and you couldn't tell because he looked like he'd been doing it for literally years. He had the characteristics down, he had the voice down, the movements down, like he was very true to the character, and he just kept it up throughout the whole thing. Like he was so fluent with it and it was just amazing to see. And all the actors were great, to be honest. Cedric Neal, who played Goldie Wilson and Marvin Berry, he had a phenomenal singing voice. He was amazing. I mean, he was a semi-finalist on The Voice, so that's saying something. His voice was a standout for me. I thought he was really good, and his number, Got Start Somewhere, I think it is, that was the catchiest song, I think. Apart from the ones that you know from the film, that was quite a standout song. Loved that. I was like bopping along to it. The ensemble was great. I recognised Oliver Ormson in the ensemble. He was really good. Everyone was pretty tight. They knew what they were doing. They gelled well together as a company. It wasn't like a massive ensemble, but it was just enough. So let's move on to like special effects. They were phenomenal. Even though it's like set in the 80s, which is obviously in the past for us, it felt very futuristic because obviously it's supposed to be. It felt like a 2020 musical, like a modern musical, and it had like the effects it should have now. They could have done it so it fit that time period more. They could have made it a bit more 80s, a bit more retro, but it actually felt really modern, but obviously with that 80s twist to it. It's hard to explain in words. They used a lot of projections and things like that, but honestly, when the car travelled back in time, it was just phenomenal. I was just like, that looks insane. It literally looked like the car was whizzing around. It was moving around the stage, but it looked like it was literally whizzing through time. The illusion was fabulous. If you like good visual effects and things on stage, then I would definitely recommend this musical because it has a lot of them. In terms of like dance routines, just going back a little bit though, like everyone was amazing, but there was also nothing was like a major big dance number. Just about satisfying enough to be like, oh yeah, great little number there, love that. But it wasn't like, oh my goodness, wow, that dance routine was epic. There wasn't any of that. So I don't think you can expect too much like musical theatre showstoppers. But if you're going for like the visual effects and the comedy aspect and the scenery and the costumes and the effects, then you won't be disappointed because it has all of that in it. Sometimes it felt a little bit slow, just in little places, because obviously there's a lot to cover, getting the whole movie onto the stage, and obviously some things from the movie probably didn't work on stage and whatnot. I do still think it was quite a long musical. Just a few parts in it that I remember being like, okay, get to the point now. In terms of musical numbers, I wasn't like blown away by them, not gonna lie. I was waiting for like a really big belty solo and I didn't really hear one. I just remember writing down on my little notes that there wasn't anything that was like, oh my god, that's an amazing high note that she's just done. There was great vocals and the singing was really, really good, but there wasn't a song where I was like, oh my goodness, that just showed that person's range immensely. Could have just been one number that had like a bit of a belty element to it, just because I personally like that, and I would have been like, oh yeah, that's a great audition song. You know, that's just me as a performer looking at it from that perspective. And to be honest, like the songs were not that memorable. I didn't think that's insane, I need to go home and listen to that right now. I didn't feel like that about any of the songs particularly, apart from that one I mentioned before, Gotta Start Somewhere. I could see myself listening to that as a feel-good track. Props and everything used on stage, amazing. The lighting, it was all really good. Visually, it was just insane. The sound was good. The only thing that I was obviously a bit like, about was the wow factor moment, the technical difficulty. So I'll show you right here because I filmed it.
So we're just waiting for the bows, I think. But this is pretty funny.
I didn't really get what was going on at first. I thought it was part of the show, but then I realised after we'd been sat there for a good 5 minutes, I was like, oh, there is a technical difficulty. And so then when they obviously got that rectified and the curtain came back up, there was a massive applause and then the car flew. Spoiler alert, I mean, you've probably seen the film anyway. It was still amazing, like, don't get me wrong, it was still a great effect. I've seen effects that are similar to this in other shows, so it wasn't like it was brand new. It was still like a wow moment, but because there was that little pause that took you away from being involved and immersed in it, because obviously once the curtain goes down, you're back to reality sort of thing. So I was like kind of ready to go, like, and then I was kind of like, oh, we're back in again. So just personally for me, the wow factor wasn't as big as it probably could have been if there wasn't that difficulty, but I do understand that these things happen, especially with a very technical show. But on the whole, I would thoroughly recommend going to see this show. If you love the movie, it definitely does live up to the expectation of the film. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And from what I've gathered from other reviews and people who I know who have seen it, they said the same and they've really enjoyed it and it's been really fun. It's a really feel-good musical. It'll get you like just feeling all the positive feels and, you know, bopping along in your seat, clicking your fingers. The cast is amazing. They've done such a good job on it and they all work so hard. It's a really good family, like, nostalgia show. I get so passionate that I can't even explain things properly, but I would 100% recommend it, especially if you live in the Northwest. You know, it's very local. Get down to the Opera House, watch it. It's fabulous. It won't disappoint. Theatre etiquette, it was okay. I feel like the ushers need to be a bit more like, stop people from filming things and stuff like that, because I also saw people like filming a few things or taking pictures on the sly and I was like, hun, what are you doing? There was people sat next to us who were like quoting the film, you know, like preempting what they were going to say, and I was like, okay, we get it, you've seen the film, you don't need to start shouting out the quotes before they've said them on stage. Like, it's not really necessary, especially if it's like people around who wouldn't have known that was coming up. It was kind of a bit of a spoiler. So yeah, it's very immersive. You literally feel like you've stepped into the movie musical. Like, it is great. It came out feeling wonderful and inspired as well. As a performer, I felt inspired. Go and check it out. Back to the Future, the musical. It's definitely worth it. I loved it. So yeah, thank you for watching my video. I really hope you enjoyed this little review. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And yeah, see you very soon, guys.